at the shop. After the last, it's been a little while, but after the last barrage of videos that I put up about trying to get my cylinder head, well, first hurting the retainer in the cylinder head, and then the mad dash to get it done and back together and running in like I think a week and a half, whatever it took, and then trying to get done for a no prep race at Rock Falls Raceway up north here from where I'm at, and I had another video all set to go where I was at the track. I went up there on a Friday night, camped out Friday night, and then we were gonna do the race on Saturday. And I had recorded some stuff I was gonna use for that video, and that whole deal turned into probably one of the worst racing experiences I've ever had with track manager and complete disrespect for me and just racers in general, and not understanding how a no prep race is really run. And without going into like a ton of detail, just because it's just drama, it's bullshit. Me and Mike, my helper, my crew guy, we voiced our opinion, and we had a couple people on our side, and it was a real small turnout to start with. And we had choice words with the track manager, and I got a refund, and we went home, and I managed to get home in time to cook out. So it wasn't a total waste of a day, but I wasted almost 8 hours of driving to go to this thing, and it was disappointing. It's a nice facility, but we won't be going back. But that's the short version of what went down there and why there's going to be no video about that no prep race that I went to. Just disappointing. Like I said, it's all the different tracks and different no preps we've been to. Never been disrespected like that from the get-go. It wasn't even something I did to initiate it. I felt like there was a target on me from the time I got there, basically. So yeah, it's done, it's over. We won't go back. Lesson learned. We had kind of a heads up about going to that track to start with, how they run things, and about this manager in general. So yeah, we just don't have to worry about going back up there. It's if you're at the center line of the state in Wisconsin, north of there, there's no reason to go to that track. Just go over to WIR or something, they'll treat you right. So yeah, I did manage to get 3 passes in, and I got a bunch of good data for kind of the no prep tune I've been working on. I've been struggling a lot lately with this thing, like knocking the tire off. If the track is good, it's easy to get good data. Any setup will work, and that's when I've gotten lucky and the thing it hooks and books. But as soon as the track starts to go away, there's all kinds of things going on to work with, whether it's shock, clutch, power delivery, power management. Just a ton going on, and I personally, I'm not DME Racing. I wish I was. I would love to go to them for some help, and if anybody that watches this works there, reach out to me. I would love a little bit of help here. But kidding aside, I just thought they're like my standard for, and probably a lot of people's standard for that matter, for what they do and how well they do it. But yeah, so I've just been struggling with a lot of stuff lately on the bike, and bike runs great, and on a good track she fucking flies. But that's all irrelevant and pointless if I need a perfect track to do it. So that's why I've been trying to hit more of the no prep stuff, and that brings us to last night. Friday is the 4th of July right now, so Friday night, 3rd of July, I was basically sitting around. It was fucking 86 degrees out and hot and humid. It's just not a lot going on with all the coronavirus shutdown stuff. But Wisconsin is fairly open, so we're lucky that we got tracks we can get to. So if, there's no big celebrations going on, minimal people doing cookouts and whatever get-togethers. So Friday night I saw that WIR track up north of here. It's only like an hour and 45 minutes away. They were running their street drags Friday night, and I used to go up there quite a bit, and friend of mine had posted that he was going, that lives up there, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and just sitting around being bored, I was like, you know what, I haven't gone up there in a while. I think the bike is ready to go after the last, the whole ordeal the weekend prior at Rock Falls. Though I had 3 passes on it, and what the heck, let's just go run it. It's still good to go. It's still in the trailer even. So I came out here, hooked up to the trailer, threw my generator and stuff in, and I headed out. I flew solo on that one, just because everybody had plans and other things going on that they had to just get done. So it was a nice drive. But yeah, we got up to the WIR track. That's in Kaukauna, Wisconsin. So if you're not from Wisconsin, you probably have a hard time pronouncing some of these places if I even spelled them out for you. But super nice track, old school feel. It's kind of down in a valley. It feels like you're kind of like back in the 60s at an old track, but they run it pretty good. But it is a small town track, and they don't get a ton of race car stuff unless it's like a bracket race weekend. So on their Friday night street drag stuff, it's just all street cars. There's a few cars that'll show up with slicks and stuff, but they don't prep the track at all, because the street cars will just go up there and just tear the prep up. So I knew that going into it, and I've been working on trying to get this no prep power management stuff kind of figured out on this bike. And I did have a friend of mine that lives up there met me that wasn't racing, and helped me out a little bit on the starting line. And it's always nice to have an extra set of eyes to see what the bike is doing, and I can kick my toes when I'm going up the starting line, kind of feel how the track is. But it's nice to have somebody that's right there that can say yes, the track is good, or no, the track is bad. So after I make my pass, I can have all this data to look at. But if I really don't know the overall condition of the track, I don't know what to blame, really. Was it my tune-up just that far off, or was the track really just not that great? But either way, I kind of went up there with the intention of trying to spin the tire. So I ended up making 4 passes. And what I've been working with on the Fuel Tech is, it's not really traction control. I've been working with time-based timing to try to control how it leaves. So you can play with boost so much, but if you're pulling too much boost, or you're applying too much, like, boost reacts slower than timing. So what I'm trying to do is figure out where it wants to leave, where I can have enough boost to stay in the power, to be able to pull it down track, 60 feet on, whatever, but not so much that it keeps blowing the tire off. And that's where the no prep stuff kind of comes in. So what I'm trying to do is say, leave with a little bit of boost, but use timing to reduce the power that boost is actually making. And timing you can recover instantly. So as long as I can maintain, say I'm, just target number generic, say I want to leave on 6 pounds. Well, 6 pounds of boost and my full timing, it makes a shit ton of power. But if I'm leaving on 6 pounds of boost and I got, say 15 degrees timing pulled out of it, the thing is a slug, but I can still maintain that boost. So if I bring timing in, it's basically ramping. It's using timing to ramp power to kind of catch up to the boost, whereas before I'm just using power, or just using boost to just ramp it in and make all the power right away and just crank it in. So that's where I've been trying to manage this no prep stuff. And I've fought with the clutch for quite a bit, but I'm to the point now with the clutch that I've been all over the board with settings, and it isn't changing a whole lot how the bike is responding. And I've gone complete fucking extremes of the settings here, and I think I've found that window that it should be working. So now I'm gonna leave the clutch alone. I'm just gonna leave how I have it set, leave it be, because it should work. And actually on a sticky track it has worked. So I'm gonna leave the clutch alone for now, and I think my bigger problem that I've been dealing with has been more of the power management side of things. I've been kind of spoiled that our local track usually has like a really good starting line, even if it's kind of greasy, 300 feet out down track. The starting line is usually pretty good, and I think I've been spoiled with that. And that's really easy to make a bike work on a starting line that works, and then you get good data and you just keep applying power, and it just takes everything you throw at it. Now that I've been trying to run not such a good surface. That's where I'm struggling. So now I'm into stuff where I have no point of reference to know how much is too much, how little is too little. So I've been making a ton of passes that it's just been going up and blowing the tire off, or I'm pulling a ton of power out and it goes up there and just leaves like a slug and just no power, no boost, and just one of the passes I made last night actually, it came out after it had killed on me the first pass I made. So I'm probably getting ahead of myself. Let's tell the story of the passes in order, I guess. First pass I went to make, did my burnout, rolled up there, put it on a two-step, went to leave, trying to leave on 6 pounds, just a generic starting number. As soon as the clutch came out, tire spun, motor shut off. Well, what's going on is my time-based timing. As soon as I throw the lever away is when all my time-based stuff starts. So even like my boost, everything is on a time from the time it comes off the two-step when I throw the lever away. So this time-based timing feature I'm using, I don't have that point of reference to know how much is too much. What's going to control things and what's going to not control or have too much control. So the first pass I made, the timing settings that I had, when it saw the tire spin, it just pulled a bunch of timing out of it, and it was too much timing. It shut the motor off. So then I had to restart it and make my pass. But when I restart the bike and make my pass, it turns basically my boost controller off, and the boost controller needs to see a two-step as my validated launch when I throw the lever away. So the boost, it never makes boost. It just runs on the wastegate spring, which is 3 pounds. So the rest of that pass was just a 3-pound pass, which it's pretty lazy. It ended up going, after I restarted and coasted out, it got into boost like 6 seconds into the run. It still went 148 miles an hour, so it was pretty pathetic. So I looked at the data log and I saw what was going on, and went back and I made some adjustments and so I knew what was too much that was going to kill the motor. So now I went back and I changed that, and let's see if I can control it the other way. Instead of shutting the motor off, let's see if I can just slow the motor down. So second pass I go up to make, and it doesn't kill the motor this time when I throw the lever away. Two-step, throw the lever. I'm making hand adjustments or hand gestures here, and you can't see my hands are down in front of me. So I'll put my hands up here. So I get up on the two-step and I throw the lever away, and the bike just falls on its face. It doesn't shut off. It just kind of, I'm gonna make sound effects, but just kind of and then RPMs dropped, and then looking at the data log afterwards, it dropped down to 2 pounds of boost. Like, it was just nothing, and it ramped into it, and I didn't shift out of first gear till 4.5 seconds into the run. So that was a 4.5 second first gear. Basically, I should have been at the 8th mile by then. But I ran it out, and it ended up going, because it didn't shut off. So I had my boost controller didn't reset. I was behind the curve of where it was what it was targeting and what it was capable of making, just because it had loaded the motor down so far that it was bogging. So at say 2 seconds into the run, it might have been commanding 14 pounds, but the motor wasn't running to that capability yet. So I had to the motor had to catch up to where the boost curve was. So now the curve is irrelevant. As soon as it makes RPM that'll make boost, it just shoots straight to the target. So the target is already at its max where it wanted to be time-wise, and the motor was down here just going, I'm coming. When it finally gets to it, then it stays in. So it didn't reset that, so I still had a full boost, in 4th and 5th gear, I think is all I used. And the bike went 162 miles an hour. It was like I think it was like a 980 pass or something like that. So now we figured out what's going to kill the motor. Now we figure out what's going to bog the motor. So I'm going to take and change some settings a little more now. Now let's go up there and see if we can not control it and spin the tire. So I got have my window of operation now. So I made my adjustment, went up there my third pass, and that's one I got a video of here that I'll put in now. So that pass was very little control timing wise. So it pulls timing for a determined amount of time, and I can, over that window of time, I can say pull this much time, exactly this much timing for this many seconds, or I can say pull this much timing here, then this much timing here, this much here. So I can make a ramp even, where I can ramp in or out more timing over time, and that's what I've been playing with. So on that pass, you can see it just blew the tire off right away. And you can try using traction control and timing control and all that stuff, but you also, it's a fine line to walk here. So you, just because you have a traction control setup or a timing control setup doesn't mean it's just going to automatically make a good pass. You still have to have a tune-up that works. If the tune-up is so far in left field, power-wise, whatever, it doesn't matter what settings you have, it can't control it. You got to be somewhere in the realm of reasonable settings, I guess, reasonable power. So you can't just magically put in some numbers and say, yes, please do this, and it's going to go up there and make a rip and be perfect every time. You still have to know what window you're going to try to work in, and you got to still be able to read the track, have the clutch working, tire, shock, all that has to work. So all this setting stuff I'm trying to play with is, if I go up there and I'm real far off and it blows the tire off, I want it to at least slow it down enough to where I don't have to feather it so much, where I can stay in it and it might pull a bunch of timing and then ramp it back in, and I can ride it out. But like we saw in the second pass I made, that if the settings are way off, it tried to spin the tire and it killed power. It killed so much power, it took all the boost and everything out of the bike. So that, cool, it didn't spin the tire. It also wasn't going to win a race if I was in it either. So after it had blown the tire off now on my third pass, I went back and I'm like, okay, now I have here's my setting that kills the motor, here's the setting that bogs the motor, now here's the setting that'll let it spin the tire. Now let's find something in the middle ground that will, say it spins the tire, it's not going to go a 120 60 foot, but say it spins the tire and I can salvage that to like a 140 60 foot, something, anything, just anything that's not killing power, shutting the motor off, whatever. So that's now my fourth pass. That's this pass here I'll put in. So on that pass, you can see the bike, obviously it didn't initially hook. You can see there's like no squat in the tail. It just it plants and kind of progressively comes down a little bit. There was no starting line grip to give me that initial hit to like just squat, plant it, and motor out. But if you listen, you can hear it squeal, and you can actually see the tire. Like, there was no smoke really, but you can hear the squeal, and you can see the tire just starting to black track, and the bike wiggles just a little bit, but it was gone. It literally saved that pass. It spun the tire, and it didn't totally save it and make it a miraculous best ever, but that track was green. Like, there was nothing up there. I mean, I shouldn't say nothing. There was a little bit of grip, but no stick, if that makes any sense. It wasn't going to pull your shoes off, but you could make them squeak if you stub your toes. So that pass, that was actually my last pass of the night. It was just getting late. But that pass was probably my best attempt at trying to control wheel speed. And on that pass, even in third gear, I clicked third gear, it actually tried to tote the front tire a little bit. So I knew, even though the track wasn't great, I have some down track settings that was letting me apply power, and it was working. So either it was the chassis, the tire, the shock, something, it was working down track enough that it tried to pick the front tire up in third on a track that hasn't been sprayed all day. And on that pass, it went 172 miles an hour. So from bogging it and running it out to being able to control it better, picked up 10 miles an hour. and it still wasn't a great first half of the track because it was trying to control a lot down low. So that ended up being the last pass of the night, but I saved that data log, and there's a ton of good info on that, and you can see like just everything that was going on, what the shock did. You can see, even if you're watching like drive shaft RPM or wheel speed or whatever, you can almost tell where the tire is spinning because I have a temp gauge on the tire, so I can tell if I spin the tire out of the hole, my temp will be, say I leave the starting line, tire temperature is 150 degrees. Just it's flat line, did my burnout, and it's just stabilized at 150. If I leave and it spins the tire, that temp will climb. It's doing a burnout basically. So I can see where that temperature is just spiking. So if I go to look at that data log and I know it went and it spun the tire, if it spun the tire bad, temps can skyrocket. If it's just hazing the tire, I can see where it was slowing the tire down. It controlled the temp because the tire wasn't spinning as fast. And then it'll kind of taper off, and then towards the end of the pass, sometimes it'll spin the tire if the big end isn't really prepped well. You get a little wheel speed, and I can see the temperature will climb towards the end of the pass a little bit. But you learn a lot even on the shitty passes, and I'm learning a lot on this attempt to no prep stuff. Because like I said, if I had a hand clutch in here, it'd probably be a lot easier because you can feather a hand clutch. This thing, once I throw the lever, I have no clutch control. Either my settings are right or they're not. So I have to control everything else with chassis, shock, tire, tune, power management, all that. So everybody says riding these bikes is easy. I just throw the lever and make a pass. I wish you could spend one night in my head trying to sleep after you spin the tire on this thing. A million things go through my head of what I need to change, what I need to fix. And I think it's where a lot of people would probably quit and give up. Be like, over my head, I'm done, or ship it off to another shop or something. That's not me. I'm gonna struggle with this thing. I don't care if it doesn't make a clean pass all year. I'm gonna get good data, and I'm gonna make this thing work. Come hell or high water, it's gonna work on a track that has absolutely no freaking glue. I could go out there and go 730s all day on a great track. But like I said, what does that prove if I can't do it when the track isn't there? So that's my goal, is to make this thing work. So I'll do a walk around and show you what I'm up to now. It's pretty hot out, so I'm sitting here in front of a fan. You can probably hear that humming away. To stay cool, it's 4 feet away from me, but I'm doing the once over on the bike after 2 weekends of beating on it a little bit, and then yeah, we'll see what happens. I gotta order a couple of batteries. I had a battery issue last night too. Wheeled it out of the trailer, and I think it wouldn't start. I had to put it on a charger for like an hour or so. I'm sitting here staring at $400 in batteries that don't work. It's amazing. So I already ordered a couple new ones. I'm trying something a little different now. I don't know if I'm going to stick with this lithium business. I've gone through 4 of them now, and I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or what, but they're more maintenance than I've ever had to do to a battery to try to keep this thing alive. And the bike has an electric water pump and an electric fan on it. So when I make a pass, say I come back from a pass and the bike is at, say, 180 degrees, which last night it was hot out, so it was 180, 185 on the return road. I'll park it in the trailer, and I will plug a battery charger in, and then I'll leave the bike on and let the fan and the pump run, and it'll cool it down to 145 degrees in like 5 minutes. So it cools off fast, but if I don't plug the charger in, the batteries don't last. I don't know what it is with these things. So I'm kind of giving up on that lithium, what is this? Lithium iron phosphate. I don't know, whatever. But I got too much other stuff going on with this bike to constantly have to worry about whether it's going to start or not. If that would have been like first round or something last night and it didn't start in the lanes, it would have been fucking, almost a 2-hour drive for nothing. Just to, that sucks. So we'll do a walk around and show you what I'm up to on this thing, and then, yeah, see what goes in there. Alright, here's what I got going on. The little girl's got all her clothes off. Going through a little bit of everything. I always double check the radiator, make sure that stays full. I'll double check the overflow, make sure it's not pushing coolant. Crankcase overflow has a little sight tube on it. so I can see if that thing, if it's pushing too much oil through the crankcase, it'll vent everything into that can. Just regular maintenance checkup stuff. I already went through and double checked plugs. It's like a 4-minute operation to do that. Looking for leaks. I pull the oil pan pretty regular. You can see, luckily, the oil in there, it's all clean. There's nothing in the pan. I'll clean it all out anyways, but I'm always looking for debris. If I see anything in there that looks like bearing, I'll pull the motor apart. From back when this thing was a nitrous motor, or a nitrous bike, went through quite a few motors on this thing, and probably could have saved a few of them had I bothered to check that more often. You usually get a warning, something ain't right. You'll get weird oil pressure, you'll see crap in the filter. Filter I already took off and cleaned. Yeah, usually if you got your eyes out, you'll see stuff before it really causes damage. You could maybe save a crank, save a rod, something from going real bad. And luckily, if you're lucky, I should say, it would end up being just a set of bearings or something. But I've wrecked a lot of crap, and so far this has been good to me. Got the batteries out of it already. Thing runs 2 batteries just because, like I said, I like to let it run in the pits with the fan and the water pump going. So I run a bigger battery up in the nose. This was actually the original setup, and then I added a second battery once I did the standalone. Sits down in this little tray I made right here. So I run a second battery there just because there's a lot more electronics. Everything's a little happier when the voltage stays up a little higher and steady. Going through a bit of clutch stuff, just double checking. I made a few setting changes before last night, and that's where I kind of came up with the theory that I don't think my clutch has been the issue with this tire spin, low traction kind of thing. I think the clutch will be just fine once I do more power management with this little fellow over here. So yeah, and then I also like to look if it's really sliding through the clutch, it'll put clutch material into the basket, and you can see it. And you'll also pick up on that. You'll see it in the pan, and there'll be some clutch material in the filter. It's not horrible, but if you get too much of that and you're not watching for it, it can start to plug the filter, and then the oil pump will start to suck the filter closed, and you'll see pressure drops, and it's just not good for the motor. So I'm just real picky about watching this stuff and looking for debris in the motor. I'm not rich, and I don't want to have to rebuild this motor all the time because I was too lazy to take a weekend and just go through stuff like this. And if you run an MTC Gen 2 clutch, they give you different weights and springs and all that stuff. If you go to Harbor Freight for like $6, you get this little organizer. And I went through and all my springs, my weights, my shims. These are where the bolts go, and then just all my different size springs I can run. Pretty handy little thing to keep in the trailer. But yeah, that's all I'm up to now. Holiday weekend of just going through stuff. I did notice this guy here. My subframe's got a little crack in it, so my fat ass needs to lay off the tacos. But since we know that's not going to happen, I'm going to take this to work. I'll just take the whole bike, and I'll take that up and add a little gusset or a little plate in here. I'll do both sides. I think it might have just been, if you look kind of how this subframe is designed, I think it might have just been a weak spot because my butt kind of sits back in here a little bit where the seat pan kind of goes. Even though, part of the seat's on the tank, when my ass kind of bumps back into that stop, I think maybe I was just kind of fatiguing that a little bit. So yeah, my bike leaves so hard it's breaking subframes. Yeah, right. But yeah, I'll get that fixed up before we go racing again. I got a little bit of time before I get the batteries for it, so maybe I'll load this thing up tomorrow, Sunday, and get that thing tigged. That's all we're up to for now. Thanks for watching. Hopefully the next video will be more racing and less yakking.